r/AskReddit. What is completely harmless but also terrifying as duck nightmares? But then I wake up and slowly remember that nothing is more frightening than my terrible life. They tell us that monsters are under our bed when they are actually inside our head. In your closet, seaweed touching your foot at the beach. I had a fish swim between my thighs once. It was so freaky. That made me laugh and shudder at the same time. The fish in the lake at my summer camp would occasionally nibble on your nipples. Watching videos of people free climbing buildings. r/sweaty palm says hello. People who have extensive doll collections. Every nook and cranny there's a doll staring at you. I do not like being in their house. At all. OP said harmless. After your soul is sucked into one of the dolls you will find yourself immune to harm for all eternity. Sleep paralysis. I don't know if it's completely harmless, but I used to experience it and I wasn't harmed, just terrified. Yep, came here to say this. First time it happened it was terrifying. Happened in college. Could hear my roommates in the other room watching TV, but I couldn't move or anything. Now it's happened enough that it doesn't really scare me, just annoys me. Sleep paralysis happens to everyone. It's a miscommunication in the brain where one part of the brain is in awake mode and the part that sends signals to your muscles is in sleep mode. Fun fact, depending on where you are brought up, your sleep paralysis monster is different. In the UK it's usually someone sat still at the bottom of your bed or somewhere in the room, whereas in the US it's more likely something approaching you to attack you. Apparently there are people who are afraid of moths. My wife is afraid of moths and we looked into it once why people are afraid of them. One theory is people fear moths because they move erratically. Since you can't predict where it is going, your brain starts screaming, get the duck away from that thing. Thinking about the future. Yay. Lately I've been thinking about when will be the next major impact from a large meteor or comet happens. Not if, but when. And why we aren't working towards a defense for it. We can, but it doesn't seem to be a priority. Nocebo effect. Worrying about something that can happen makes you behave in a way that can possibly lead to the mess you thought about. You hear a sound at 3 AM in your house. Had a big 100+ lb German Shepherd when I was younger. Terrifying if you didn't know him. But he was a giant teddy bear who would sulk behind furniture if he thought you didn't like him or were being mean. AWW. Poor boy. I had a female Rottweiler who was a big old tank but loved to cuddle and adored little kids. Weighed about 130 and it took a bit of getting used to when walking her. Especially if she got excited. No way you're holding that beast back. She never hurt anyone though, even though it looked like we had a black bear on a leash. LOL. Public speaking. I had, and still have, a stutter which firmly determined what I did and did not want to do while growing up. I always dreaded public speaking, but I still did it despite apprehension and people laughing at me. One minor act by a friend who I doubt remembers it still helps me 30 years later. Now that I'm much older I've been in numerous positions where I have to talk in front of groups, and refusing to do so just isn't an option. I still dislike it and will avoid it when I can. But public speaking isn't something you can hide from forever. Even if it isn't in a formal I'm giving a speech setting, you're still most likely going to do a lot of it your entire life. Being left alone with my thoughts for too long. I think everyone has this problem these days. That's why we try to keep our minds occupied with other things constantly, like video games, and in my case, sucking dicks. Needles. Just can't get over them. I know it only hurts for a second is probably in my best interest. I'm much the same. I'm absolutely phobic even though I know they don't really hurt that much and are doing me good. There've been times I've passed out and even thrown up from psyching myself up about them too much. You know those big green beetles that fly into everything during the summer. Completely harmless, but huge and look scary AF. Cicadas. They're huge in the Midwest. If I recall correctly, every 17 years the gestation periods align and millions of those fat little noisemakers swarm. It's not too bad if you live somewhat far from forests or natural areas, but it can be brutal if you do. They are fat, unbelievable dumb things that look freaky but are 100% harmless and vital to the ecosystem. They also can die super easily. So if you see one tipped over on its back and making a bunch of noise, be a bro and help the lil dude turn himself over. Darkness. pretty dangerous if you're walking along a cliff edge. Those dreams where you wake up from falling. If it helps you to know, your brain locks down your body so you don't act out your dreams physically. The feeling of falling is entering and coming out of this. Hopefully you'll have less panic knowing this is why it is happening. Talking to my crush, I guess. I'm just terrified of saying something dumb or inappropriate. Night terrors. Sleep paralysis. You wake up and see a ducking monster sitting on your chest and staring at you or just crawling slowly across the room to you. You try to escape, only to realize that you're paralyzed. It's more realistic than any dream you've ever had. And you can't wake up, because you are awake. Yep, fun. Edit. Fixed name. Sorry about that. Night terrors are a different, also very scary, thing. My son had them when he was younger and they are really scary. He would be screaming and shouting and running around his room, screaming help me. We couldn't snap him out of it and the pediatrician said just to wait it out. So we would watch him do that for 5 minutes and then he would eventually yawn, crawl back in bed and go to sleep. He wouldn't remember a thing the next day. Any insects that jump? I got 2 words for you. Camel. Crickets. My parents' house's basement is infested with camel crickets. I prefer not to go down there. This is an Australian huntsman spider, which grows to about the size of an outstretched human male adult's hand in an urban environment, and up to 3 times the size in rural areas. These little guys can get big, but of all our deadly spiders, snakes, and everything else, they're harmless, great at hunting all our hitty insects, and very afraid of humans, but venture indoors sometimes to escape wet weather in the warmer seasons in a subtropical environment. They can bite, but only if you try to antagonize them so they will defend themselves. They honestly mean you no harm. Oh my god, no. Why did I click that? Why? Number. Get that beastie away from me. Reminds me of a friend who was volunteering at a pet shelter and she refused to go into the room when there was a snake. I refused to go into the room with the giant spider. Who the duck keeps those as a pet? I rather play with the constrictor than deal with the hairy creepy spider. Not being able to breathe through your nose. Babies. I've had friends that want me to hold their newborns and I've always said no because I am afraid I will do something not good like drop them or something. One time I saw the guy drop his kid off his shoulders in IKEA and I've never been the same. Neither has the kid. Certain snakes. I'm rather friendly. Have you ever seen a basking shark? Those things scare the hit out of me, but are harmless unless you're tiny fish. The ocean. Swimming in it won't hurt you, until you go under the surface and look straight down, thinking about our inevitable death as humans. I don't think death is a bad thing, at least there are far more harmful and painful things living than death itself. However, to the untrained mind, it can be terrifying as FLOL. Getting an MRI. Couldn't agree more. Last time I was supposed to have one, I ended up having a panic attack and getting held down by security until the benzo kicked in. Not doing that again. The sound of a balloon when it pops. It scares the ever-living duck out of me every time. Power going off randomly during a storm. There are all kinds of situations where this could be the very opposite of completely harmless, I would think. I work in a prison. Both terrifying and harmful. The 10 seconds or so before the Jenny kicks on are awful. Once the Jenny didn't come on for minutes. No bueno. Spiders. Roaches. Spiders. Came here to say this. I see a house spider, and I give him a thumbs up and tell him keep up the good work. If he's alive, it's because he's eating other bugs that got into my house. Driving. A little painted line on the road and some basic rules is all that separates you from death or extreme injury. My mom's sandals of justice. Going to the dentist. It always gives me a laugh when I walk back to my car thinking how I spent all day worrying about it. Cockroaches, especially those that can fly. Social interaction.